That's pretty tasty. You guys ready for this? Just not even give a fuck about assault rifle kills right now? Because fuck it. You guys ready to die to this invader because he has truth? You guys ready to get fuck? I'm losing it. I'm losing it.
Hey guys, how's it going? Obsolete Zero here. Today I want to talk about rotating content in Destiny 2, specifically seasonal content. But first I want to get into a little bit about myself and where I've been with Destiny 2 recently. It kind of sets the framework for this conversation as well, because I think I have a little bit of context to give to the conversation. So for me, I played Destiny 2 Season 1 through Season 4. And Season 4, I barely touched it for the most part. But essentially, I played up until I got the Claymore, the Redrix Claymore. That was a big grind for me. And what that did is it kind of exhausted me from the game. That was an example of quote-unquote seasonal content, essentially pinnacle weapons that drove me to play the game because I really wanted to reach a certain goal. But at the end of it, it felt fairly underwhelming, right? It felt like I had put in a lot of work to amount to not so much. And that kind of provides a little bit of context to what we're talking about today. When Forsaken dropped, I barely played Gambit. I touched it for a few games, and that was the point at which I stopped playing Destiny 2 for the time being. I missed Season of the Drifter, Joker's Wild, I missed the Black Armory, I missed all of those seasons. So for my framework of where I'm at in the game, just giving you a little bit of background there, I recently started back up, I'd say about give or take a month ago, maybe a month and a half, with Season of Opulence, and even that I came into it late. So this is kind of a broader discussion about Destiny as a whole, in the sense that the game is kind of broken up right now into seasonal content. If you are a returning player, and we might get this with Shadowkeep, sometimes it feels like you can be left behind. And I think that's not necessarily a bad thing, but if that's going to be the case, Bungie really needs to do a better job and put an emphasis on the current season at hand. I think they did that a little bit with Season of Opulence. The Menagerie is a really enjoyable activity that can be played ad nauseum and rewards you fairly well. The customization is really nice there, and I'd like that inclusion in the game. Nothing is worse than, as this background gameplay shows, I'm kind of on the grind for Breakneck and trying to get the MMXIX title before the Moment of Triumph ends. Sorry about that. But basically, I'm trying to crunch time this because I need to get the Notorious Armor from the Reckoning, and I need to do all of these steps that I missed out on, get pinnacle weapons, all of these kinds of things. So I really had to grind to try and get the Breakneck, because that was one of the triumphs required to get the title. So here I'm using the Sweet Business, and basically I'm just grinding in and out. And that clip in the beginning is kind of showcasing my stress level as I just kept going and going, and it was just one of those nights basically. But I want to talk about now the actual conversation of this video. Basically, Bungie has announced that with Shadowkeep, it is possible that certain bits of content, and going forward, certain bits of content will be rotating out, seasonal content specifically. And I think the initial reaction to this is why, and this is kind of a knee-jerk reaction of this just doesn't feel good, right? You're taking away parts of the game that have been fundamental to playing it in the past. But let's just think about, especially if you're an active player, how often right now do you play Gambit? How often are you incentivized to play Gambit, right? For me, hopping back on, it made a little bit of sense. And it was fucking hell, but it made sense because I was trying to strive for certain goals. Let's say you've already completed that content, right? And let's even say, fast forward to this day and age, you've done Season of Opulence content. What is there for you to return to those activities? Like, why are you incentivized to continue to do them? And then that begs the question of, okay, well, should you be incentivized to do content in the first place? Shouldn't you be able to play a video game just to play it and enjoy it? And I would argue yes. But for a game like Destiny, where it's so focused on loot and reward systems, I think you need to have goals in mind for players to attain for them to repeat content, especially content of a year old. So with Gambit specifically, they made a reference to there will only be one Gambit, in the sense that either Gambit Prime or regular Gambit will likely be rotating. And this kind of caused a little bit of controversy. There's been videos that I might link one in the description that got pretty famous by Slayerage, and it's something that I think might be a good thing, right? The reason why is you do, as Bungie, want to have players play the content that you just put out freshly. Now, it causes a dilemma when a lot of the exotics and a lot of the powerful items to get are hidden behind content from seasons past. I felt this when I returned, been in trying to get Recluse, and trying to get Mountaintop, and trying to get Wendigo, and some of these other weapons. Loaded Question is a phenomenal PvE weapon that I've used a lot, and I had to kind of step aside a little bit and focus specifically on that. Some of the Black Armory weapons, it's one of those things where you have to focus on those tasks, and when you can combine certain activities and tackle multiple things at once, then the game starts to really get in its gel. But a lot of the times, because it's broken up into seasonal content, you really have to hone in on one activity. And that means that your time is limited, and I hate truth. We're not even going to talk about that in this game mode, but it means that you really have to spend your time wisely. And if you kind of just want to come back and just play the game for what it is, you can do that, but you're not going to enjoy it as much as if you're really trying to go for what the game directs you into doing, which is trying to get those high tier rewards. If you're at all serious about the game, and I don't mean like a try hard or a sweat or whatever, it just means that you would like to get rewarded for the highest level of activity, especially if you devote a large amount of time into the game. And I think with Gambit potentially rotating and other bits of content that could rotate, there's truth again, it's something where we initially say, oh, that feels bad, right? Because you're taking away something from me to be able to do in the game. And, there's reasons behind that we don't really need to discuss, space-wise and whatnot. But it's one of those things as well where you should be incentivized, and truth again, oh, it's totally the truth, guys, to replay the current activities and the content that is at hand for you that they have recently freshly developed. If you're really into a game, playing older content, and especially in an MMO, can be rewarding too, and that should still exist. So I feel like with Gambit and Gambit Prime, maybe Bungie is reaching out and saying, okay, these activities, we have heard a lot of feedback that maybe players aren't enjoying them as much, and we're hearing that it's kind of a grind, reckoning some of these enemies, like it just doesn't feel balanced. It doesn't feel like we have devoted the tuning that they require. And I feel like if you're fleshing out a game and you're introducing seasonal content, it's important that if there are high-level rewards that people will strive for from seasons prior, that you make those bits of content fun and enjoyable and balanced as well. Otherwise, you're going to have a really big issue where players feel forced to play that older content, and if it's not tuned and if it's not balanced, they're going to have a bad time. And that's just a negative play experience, so it disincentivizes people from playing your game. So there's a big at-odds war here where you want to have content now that comes out, especially with something like Shadowkeep, that is really engaging, really repetitive, but not in a boring way, like where you can replay it over and over and over and still have a great experience. You want that, and if you do have content from the past that is especially attainable, where you want players to maybe gravitate towards that here and there, those activities also still need to be fun and enjoyable. And I feel like there's an issue with power level and other things where sometimes content gets either much easier over time or less enjoyable because that challenge doesn't exist, or the challenge is too hard. We see that with Reckoning, and we see, you know, some patches all the time with the sandbox of trying to get it right. And I think that rotating content as a whole, bringing it back here, can be good for the game. I think that you want to have people playing the bits that you are meant to be playing right after they come out, and really taking advantage of that awesome season. And if you have returning players such as myself, you want those players to play your new content and get enjoyment and rewards from that, right? If you're not doing that and you have to play 1, 2, 3-year-old content, then where's the game really incentivizing you to play? You know, like what are you getting out of it? Is it just rehashed at that point? So I think rotating content is good because it forces Bungie to develop really ingenuity and innovation in their new content. And I hope that this shed some light on the subject. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. And hope you all have a good day, okay? Take it easy.